Okay, I am Daniel Yates, and I am a scientist, a research scientist, as a matter of fact, with multiple degrees, different stuff, and we're here with. I'm so bad with names. I'm so sorry. Rain, right? Is the
Yeah,
okay? I can remember that one, which is
yeah.
a
Dark
miracle.
Silver. Dark Silver is actually the name of my business, my LLC. But Rain is that's me. So
See, I want to make the audience aware of at least who I am, so that they know that they can trust what we're talking about here.
right,
One thing that I think I had something else going on, but we're going to be talking about USARK, the what you do, Dark, and then we're going to. I talk with my hands, and I can't seem to get this like
you're good, man.
and
It's your
so
show, dude. It's your show, man. Do your thing.
we're going. Well, I'm actually scared. Like this actually, because I don't do this kind of thing yet enough for me not to be. But like what a man should do. When I say that, I mean that like a person. You should face your fears. I do. Like I can act and stuff, but I still, before I go on stage, I'm still going to get scared. It's just one of those things. It's just who we are as humans.
Natural.
It is, and so you just have to work through it. One of the things that hopefully by the end of the weekend I'll have my personal company started. I've tried to start the website. It's kind of a deal because I've never done it before. Learning from my reptile products, and we're going to have things like this. I did get this from Phil Gross, the emblem. So this is a death mold of an emerald green tree skink. I had one pass away. I have video of how I did it. And so I got the emblems from Phil. And so this is actually a pin that I wear. And when I take my dragons for walks, I wear it and I explain who USARK, and I describe USARK as an organization fighting for our rights to keep the reptiles. That's as simple as that. That's as simple as you should keep it when you're talking about them. And so I have crawfish one, which is really neat. Real death mold of a crawfish. I made a pin for Dylan from here's just a regular skink mold. Nope, it's not really a pin. I mean, it looks so cool. The details.
No, that's good, man. You're immortalizing things, man.
Exactly. I had a bearded dragon pass away at 7 months. Spike. And this is a incense / business card holder.
Gotcha.
So I'll be trying to sell things like this, and my goal is to get out of the apartment and get a house, get some 3D printers. I'm going to 3D print organs and put inside these for educational purposes and do some things like that, as well as inserts for. And I have degrees or I have studies in behavioral human, so it's pretty easy to switch over to animals. So when I talk about making inserts, I'm talking about making inserts due to an animal's behavior, not just to make something to sell it. Like I'm really wanting to go through the engineer. Everybody that I've talked to about 3D printing and stuff, they go, "Oh yeah, we who I don't know anybody that makes those organs." I'm like, "Yeah, I'd never thought about buying it off of somebody. I was going to do it myself. I have degrees in physics. I'm just going to go ahead and do it." Well, Dylan from Animals at Home podcast, I sent him a massive box of molds and rubber versions of the molds and stuff so that I could test international shipping, so we can find out if things break or if they like just how to do it in general. And so and I'm always telling people, I want you to truly critique me. Like not like, "Oh well, just give me a little bit of here." No, critique me. Tell me. I would love to have seen like just the look. He's like, it's so detailed. It's amazing how much detail you captured in them. But the feet, I'm like, yes, I know. I've been working on the feet so hard. For some reason, the feet just do not come in no matter how hard I try. Like the feet just don't seem to want to come in right. The toes, and I've tried. So what I did was take criticism, and I lowered the initial price that I would have wanted for them, which was less than what other people were saying I should ask for it already. So I'm gonna charge lower price, and I use quality polymers, quality polyurethane from Smooth On. So it's industrial strength. I make bearded dragon heads, and I drop them, and I show people like, no, this is quality stuff. So when you buy one, you buy it for life. You're not just, oh yeah. And I lowered the price because of the feet, because I took constructive criticism, and I've really worked hard to try to fix it, and I just can't. So that's what you do when you're a good business person and you actually care about your customers. And that right there, and being honest with your customers. So now my customers can't go back and go, well, you didn't tell me that this was not going to, like, the feet were. No, I told you. I made sure to make sure that you understood. And a lot of people, well, that's not bad, good business practice. You should wait till, like, it's like, I can't wait. I got to make the money. But, and it's what I got now. It's what I can do for customers. And then this is probably all limited. Yeah, this seems like a business thing, but I wanted people to understand that I listen.
Right.
I understand. I connect. Something I talked about on the Fight Club, the Reptile Fight Club, is that smart people ask people that know more than they do.
Of course. No, that's
so I have an understanding of USARK, and I have questions about USARK. I'm a supporter of USARK, but I still have questions, and it's super hard to get a hold of, like Phil Gross and people like that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go to somebody like you who has this business that you've been dealing with, and you've been dealing with reptiles for 31 years, all these different things, and you're connected to some of the federal people and some of the local stuff in Pennsylvania, which will be the next episode, is me and you talking about Pennsylvania laws. So what are some of the thoughts so far?
I mean, I think you're definitely headed in the right direction. I guess the most important thing would be to get the right people to talk to, because, you know, a lot of the other channels, like if you look at like MJ's Trap Talk, like that trash, that guy interviews everybody. Like every other day, he's got somebody on, you know, trying to get his views up, trying to get his subs up, because it's not really about the animal, it's about MJ. You know what I mean? And a lot of channels are like that, or a lot of them are repetitive. So, you know, and a lot of channels, like what you were trying to do and what I tried to do, and surprisingly, Dylan did it and did it successfully, was able to
MJ? Sorry.
He's a guy out of San Diego. I don't know if I would personally call him a breeder. I've heard that he might have bred some stuff. I know he's got a lot of stuff, you know, a lot of animals, but the moderate amount that I know about him, I don't know, Daniel, he's a clown to me, man. You know, he just comes off like very arrogant, very egotistical. He likes to run his mouth a lot, but he doesn't have any information of his own, nothing informative. And for me, that's an issue, because it's very repetitive with everyone who's doing animal channels in general, not just reptiles. You'll see the same things over and over and over and over again. You know, so I don't subscribe to many channels. I think the only two channels that I even watch on YouTube is Dylan and Dan Malari, and I talk to both of them regularly. But, you know, it's everyone. I guess when they found out that you can get paid, that's when everybody ran to it. And don't get me wrong, everybody wants to get paid. I mean, you have bills. Unless you're a billionaire or millionaire, then of course you're going to want to get paid for the work that you do. But the problem is, what a lot of what I see is it's not work. It's BS. And but people subscribe to it, and not only do they subscribe to it, then they promote it, but then they're promoting things that are unhealthy, unethical, and then, everything gets lost in translation after that, and then it's hard to tell the truth or spit the facts because nobody wants to hear that anymore. I mean, like right now, everyone like on Instagram is going on Jay Prehistoric, and they should, because of his animals are extremely obese, extremely unhealthy, and just his practices are very unethical for him to have a zoo. And, people aren't just saying it, they're showing it and saying it. Like, hey, look at this. And he knows better. He's been doing this shit longer than me. He knows better. There's no reason that his retics should look like that or be kept like that. But, the problem is cash is king. And because of that, like I said, you get lost in the sauce, man. And when cash is king, that's when you find out the who's who really has money and who really doesn't. And, I pay attention to everything. In the background, when I'm talking to people, when I look on their pages, I'm looking at your rugs, I'm looking at your curtains, because you just said all this $1 million shit. You just said all this $1 million stuff, but then I'm looking at how you live, and I'm just like, wow.
So we have cameras for safety. We've got fish tanks. We've got enclosures. And then they're 55 gallons for zebra skinks and anoles and stuff and things like that. So, yeah, I do not live like a king by any means.
Right, but you don't come off that way. You know what I mean? You told me exactly who you were, your situation, straight up. There's no lying in you that I see. So because I won't get on and talk to anybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I plan on I don't want to. Anybody smart enough to be president is smart enough not to want to be president.
Well, right. That's like when I was a chef, I tell people now, like, a lot of chefs are like, they'll tell you, like, don't do this. You don't want this. And I tell people that all the time. Like, if you're single, you're young, and that's what you want to do it. But if you're trying to do other things on top of being a chef or being deep into the culinary industry, you're going to have no life and you're going to make very little money. I mean, dude, I used to work 70 to 90 hours a week as an executive chef, as a sous chef. And my line cooks were making more than me because I'm on salary. You know what I mean? And, I'd come in, like, dude, there were some days I didn't even go home. I'd sleep in the cloak closet and then go across the street to the hotel where my homie worked, and he'd slide me a room key so I could go in there and freshen up and shit. And then I'd walk back across the street and go into work, because by the time I got home living in DC, no one in DC really drives. I don't say no one, but most people just take the train, even if they do have a car or a bus or they live within walking distance. Well, I live far out, so it was like a 2-hour trek for me to get home. I'm getting off at 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. By the time I get home, it's 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. So now I got to decide, do I want to eat or do I want to shower? Because I can't do both. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Literally college, I worked at Lazy Boy, and that was 4 o'clock in the afternoon or 4:30 in the afternoon to 4 in the afternoon to 2:30 in the morning, Monday through Thursday, and went to school full time during the day for a physics degree, associates.
Sounds about right.
And literally, I had to choose some mornings between pooping and sleeping.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine said best. He said, if you choose one, you might end up doing both.
Yeah. No, I know. When I was in college for architecture, dude, there were some days like my roommate didn't see me for like a week sometimes because I was sleeping in the architecture studio, and they had a shower in there, shower and vending machines. And, you'd go in there and there'd be cots. People would be I'd see people dragging their mattresses across campus. So the architecture students were like the most not accessible people that you could find on campus.
Yeah.
You never see us.
Yeah, I'm just thankful that I didn't have to open a book, and because I was so-called learning disabled in grade school, so I didn't actually. When I finally went back to college, I didn't have to open a math book until college algebra, and I had to start from pre-algebra, and I went all the way from Diffie Q to freaking physics 2 to calculus 3. I did a little bit of study in actual chaos theory. I computer programmed a little bit. I mean, it's insane, but it's amazing that so many of the other classes are so easy for me that I could just sleep in them sometimes.
Right.
Yeah. But yet I'm learning disabled.
Well, there's a lot of clinical and technical terms that doctors get paid off of. So, I mean, according to the definition of like bipolar, everyone on the planet would be bipolar by that definition. So,
but I went back I was in school. I think I graduated high school in 2003. So I'm way older than I look.
Well, that's like me. I'm 99, so.
Yeah. It's I collect Transformer toys now because they're coming out with good ones that actually represent like the 80s cartoon. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh my God, I wonder if Dark, if he's like, dude, okay, this brings back memory kind of things. Because that old school 1980s cartoon, yeah.
Yeah, I was into all of that, man. All those cartoons back then, man. I know them all. So
I just got the new Perceptor.
Yeah, I'm still I'm gonna say a huge anime guy. I used to be bigger than I am now into anime.
Who has the time with reptiles? And I mean,
right. I mean, yeah, animals have always been a large part and taken up a large part of my energy, like even as a child. But I was coming up in high school and I was the king of video games in my area. I was unbeatable. Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter. Like we'd bring the Super Nintendo or the PlayStation to school. I went to Montessori school, and then when everything was done, we'd go in the science room, pull out one of the TVs, hook it up, and it was literally me versus whoever wanted to play because no one could beat me. Now I suck at video games. Like I guess I video gamed myself out. So
yeah, I didn't grow up like that. I didn't have a friend that lived near me until I was in junior high, and that was still a mile down the road.
Mm.
I went to school a town away, but my grandparents lived there. My grandmother was a saint. I always explain to people when you're talking about reptiles compared to dogs, you're talking about my grandparents. My grandmother was a freaking saint. She's a dog. She is that I love you no matter what.
Right.
You can do no wrong, and you never appreciate it till that's gone.
Right. But, I can agree with that 100%.
Whereas my grandpa's like a reptile. You got to earn that love.
Right.
You got to earn that respect. And that's the one you always cater to. That's the deal with reptiles that people don't understand. It's like, no, they'll force you to.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's kind of you're kind of forced to do things for them because they're totally dependent on you. So,
and that bond, once you get that bond, it's wonderful. I mean, you feel like you've earned it. And when people put work into things, they tend to want to hold on to it longer.
Right.
And that positive feeling, oh man, I got this done. Oh man, look at him now. Lady at Walmart's Hydra she's like, oh my God, I've had 8 bearded dragons. I'm like, yeah, Hydra's the wiry one right now. He's been kind of like that. And the guy I've been talking to for 2 hours is like, yeah, he's kind of wiry right now. She goes, he's the nicest dragon I've ever seen. And he's still the wiry. Yeah, thank you. I did that. Yeah, I worked with him. My shirt actually says Hydra. And it's
I saw that earlier, yeah.
Summer camp, just the way interacting with people and the reptiles. And like you saw that I was taking my dragons out for a walk. I have a video on how I do that safely. And yeah, I've been criticized by a couple people in the industry, but it's like if you actually pay attention, like I go into depth. I put them in totes on the car ride so that they don't get hurt. I make sure that the leashes, they can't get to each other. I make sure that it's harder for them to see each other, that they're comfortable, that they're getting enough light, but then when they get enough light that they're not getting extra that's going to overheat them and they don't actually need it, so they're going to be more comfortable being covered, and just these different things. And then at the end of the video, I show a fish actually taking in for calm fancy, my oldest, and this fish is actually alert, like just focused on fancy. And it's so interesting to think about these fish just swim around this thing no matter how many people are there. My dragons, they'll have 12 people around them and they'll be focused, lasered on the fish. It's like, are we the most boring species on the planet? Because like these dragons, they just love the fish and the fish love them, and it's like, but yet you have 12 people standing around wanting to touch them, and they don't care at all. It's neither good or bad. It's a human. If you ain't got a bug, I don't care.
Right.
So where would you like to start?
I mean, we can start anywhere, man. Any topic is good for me, man.
Definitely start with USARK, and then we're going to work into what you do to where we can understand how to improve things. And we definitely want to get into insurance.
Right. Well,
let's go with USARK first. Now, here's some of the thoughts that I had. Like, I talked to Phil Gross personally, and he comes across as just a busy guy that like that. And so when the CHIP Act was going through, and that's where the Lacey Amendment. Now, the Lacey Amendment was made in 1919 for conservation purposes. And Mark Rubio and a Democrat, he's a Republican from Florida, a Democrat from Hawaii co-sponsored the bill, and they attached this amendment to the CHIP Act, the Lacey Amendment Act, to outlaw any import or export out of the country, make it basically a crime if it's not on the federal white list, where everything's state black lists. So you have to prove that an animal is not harmful to the environment, whereas before you had to prove it is. It's the exact opposite of what we're supposed to have in our society: innocent until proven guilty. Whereas this is you're guilty till proved innocent. And it was a 20,000. If you got caught with one of these animals going across a state line, it was $20,000 or up to like 10 years in jail. Like, it was harsh. And so I talked to Phil Gross when I started hearing the CHIP Act on the news, which you never hear about this amendment. You only hear about all the other shitty things that Mark Rubio does, or if you're watching certain news, that you'll hear about the positive things that he does.
Right.
And it's like, okay. And so I asked Phil Gross, I'm like, so do we hear anything back from this? And it's like, no, I haven't. But I've seen clips of Congress, the what is that? The chamber, the talking about the actual bill. Mm-hmm. And that was the first thing on the chopping block, was a Democrat lady, I don't know who she was, saying, hey, this is not good. And so I'm asking Phil, I'm like, so have we heard anything back a couple weeks after that? And he said, no, I haven't. My issue with that is this is the most important thing in your life right now. Why do you not have somebody on the inside telling you what's going on?
Well, they didn't want it. They could have linked with me, and I could have. So anything in the last 7 years, I've gotten wind of years before USARK, and I tried to contact those guys for 5 years straight. Nothing, no return emails. I called every guy that is on that website that is attached to them at their jobs, at their offices, at the college they work, left them messages. And after a while, my messages got less friendly because I'm like, I don't even really know if you guys really care, or if you're just doing things for clout, because I know a lot of people do that stuff. Or maybe you are the problem and you're just doing this to get donations. You're making it look like, you're helping, but, I mean, and I'm not saying that that's what's going on, but I'm saying
Let me chime in here just real quick. That's exactly the way I was thinking about it. We have to realize that they are a special interest group. Mm-hmm. That's exactly what they are. And special interest groups often have alternative motives. So as a conspiracy theory thing, you could possibly go, hey, what if USARK paid for Rubio to do this? What if they were involved? It's highly unlikely. Like, that's not necessarily. Plus, oftentimes our Congress and the laws are based on, what did the Supreme Court basically not do? Precedents. So if we get this and we get this to where it's like, oh, well, this isn't going to pass, we've actually stricken it down in Congress, then it possibly could become a precedent that they would strike it down. So it's actually might be a good thing if USARK actually did that, which I really don't think they did. I really don't think they've got the funding to do that, which I think is one of the biggest problems with USARK. And I am not a conspiracy theory guy, but I get how chains work.
Right. Yeah, I just have to look at things at all angles because, I've been taught to expect the expected and the unexpected. So I have to look at it because that way, if it does happen, or if this is the truth, or if that's not the truth, then I've already thought about it and thought about what I would need to say or what I would need to do. But, talking to people who are USARK members and talking to people who are not, a lot of them share the same concerns. A lot of people don't want to donate to USARK because they're like, I don't see what they're doing with the money. And then people who do donate with USARK are still like, I kind of still don't see what they're doing with the money. So, or one that I've heard from members is they have no presence. They don't come to the shows anymore because before Phil took over, the person who used to run USARK, he was at all the shows, meeting with all the vendors, hi, bye, all that good stuff. And now they said that doesn't happen anymore. So that, and then them just making a YouTube channel like last year.
I was going to get to that. Yeah, I just watched one today and they were like, oh, hey, USARK is so good. They're so great. Well, what are they doing? If they're doing something, then I think it actually might be important to announce, okay, so in this state, right? I know USARK Florida is one of those things that totally different ballgame. And I'm going to see about doing something about a Florida, maybe having like USARK Florida, see if I can get like Camp Cannon and a guy who's not in the reptile hobby, but is in politics down there and huge on YouTube that I actually appreciate his takes. And I'm wondering if I get all four of them together, because that's just a totally different game. But if they came out and said, okay, so this week we're in Connecticut because they're trying to pass this law and we're trying to stop it, just that little bit of data goes so much farther than that. And this is what we're talking about when we're talking about critiquing them. We're not here to say, oh, well, they absolutely 100% don't do anything to support them. No, we want to show you ways that USARK should be doing it better. That's actually not that difficult to do. And it would actually help them, help us, and just be better in the future.
Right. Well, I spoke to them at USARK in Florida. Surprisingly, I was able to get a hold of them, and they agreed with everything that I said. Everything that I said, they agreed with.
Any sane person would.
And I said, it's pretty sad when Kevin McCurley and Brian Barczyk and all these other people had more followers in USARK. And, I said, it just doesn't make sense that you make an Instagram page and then you say no DMs. Then don't ask me for money. That's how I look at it. Don't ask me. If I can't speak to you, don't ask me to spend money with you. I mean, that's like someone wanting to buy a dog or a snake for me, and I don't want to answer any of their questions, but I'm hounding them for a deposit to hold a puppy or to hold an animal. And then every other week I'm like, hey, you got the 25% this week? You got the 25% next week? Oh, no, I ain't got time to talk to you. Well, do you have my money? That's what I see, and I take offense to that. I don't support the people that run USARK. I do support the mission. That's how I look at it. And that's probably not going to change because I really don't see them changing, because I can show you an email before I met you, and I had posted this on my Instagram page where Jeremy from Brassman Reptiles, I wrote him on Instagram, and he had to agree with me as well. Of course, he tried to defend some of the stuff, but I'm hard to beat, Daniel. Dylan will tell you, anybody who knows me, I'm hard to beat. I'm not saying that I can't be beat, but I'm hard to beat. I live, breathe, and eat this more than most people that I know. And he supposedly had linked me with Phil. So he set up a BCC email between me, him, and Phil, did the introduction. I wrote a long email to Phil, never got a reply back. And then once they got that part, the Lacey Act removed, I knew I wasn't going to hear from him. But then the next day, everyone, including Dave Kaufman and everyone was like, yeah, we did it. And me, being me, I'm like, no, the hell you didn't. Because one, they're already drafting another bill and they don't even know about it, but I know about it. So a real bill that's solely going to focus on animals, it's not going to be a sneaky paragraph this time. But I said, USARK wasn't the only group down there fighting, because they weren't the only group in danger. So for you guys to be this arrogant and egotistical to say that no one else did this except for Phil, I said, that's crazy. And I said, and that's very disrespectful. But the community is very disrespectful. What I'm doing, someone already tried to do what I did, and the community shot it down. They don't want to support it, which is why we already don't have insurance, why we didn't have a registry before the last 4 years. But I can't even get insurance because I can't even get guys to sign a petition for me to get 1,000 signatures to take it to an insurance broker for him to show his company that it's feasible for them to do, because they want to see numbers. But what people don't understand, okay, you don't want to get insurance and you want to make excuses about it. Listen, dude, it's the same thing in the black community when they're like, oh, cops are killing black people. Okay, well, you want cops to stop killing, and it's not even to the degree that they say it is, but that's just what they project on television. But let's just go with what they say. Okay, you want the cops to stop doing that? Get insurance policies on yourself, and the insurance companies will tell the cops, like, look, you got to stop killing these people, man, because every time you do, we got to pay out $250,000, $500,000. So it's the same thing if we had insurance.
The problem with that ideology is that the city pays out, and so why is the city not saying that? So that I question that a little bit, but I actually have some ideas on this exact topic. But one thing that I saw Phil talk about with one of the guys, I actually like the guy, but most people in the industry do not understand politics, and that's what we're trying to do on this on this episodes, is to help people be able to locate the information and stuff. So what the Phil said, I mean, quoting him, we weren't the only ones that were doing it. it was we weren't the only ones, and nobody, I guarantee you, nobody heard that.
No,
Even though Phil said it. It's just USARK is amazing, and this is our way, and they should be supporting that to a point, but yet we need to understand who else is doing it, because this didn't affect just reptiles. This affected zoos. This affected actual medical staffs. This affected every single aspect of animals in the country. So, and they have special interest groups, because you think the pharmaceutical companies are going to go, no, you can't take our rats. You think they're going to go, no, the monkeys that we test on, do you think you can take those? No, you can't.
Well, with the insurance thing is why I kind of mentioned it. What you said is right about the city doing payouts, but the reason the city has to do payouts is because these people don't have insurance. That's the reason.
Yeah, I got a buddy who was on the. I don't go to protests because I have anger issues deep down inside, and I grew up that way, and I had to learn to control it. That's actually what happened to my empathy. That's why I have so much empathy. Study shows that's what grows your empathy as a child, is learning to control your anger. So I can't go to protests. I can't do it. No, I know where my boundaries are, and I have to respect them. But I have a buddy who's on the front lines on the Black Lives Movement in Kansas City who was beat. And I know he was a peaceful protester. So, yeah, it's not okay. It's not acceptable. If that's the way you want to run things, no. One of the things that there was a lady the other day, and I say this because psychology, I was kind of hoping to get into this a little bit later, but we'll get into it now. I watched her belittle her husband. I talked about politics to a lot of people because I know how to talk to them because most people, when you talk about the issues, 60 to 80% of polling shows that we are all on the same side on almost every single issue. It's that they add these labels and stuff to it to make it sound bad. Oh, well, it's socialism. Well,
political gangbanging, man.
Yeah, and so
political gangbanging is what it is.
This lady asked me if I was a Republican after I told her that if we housed the homeless, we would actually save money. And she goes, "So you're a Republican?" It's like, no, I'm a human being, and I meant that as like the two-party system shit, and that if you're a human being, you're probably not really wanting to be in the two-party system. It's just not okay. And so, but it came across as, oh, well, Republicans are inhuman. I still stand by that. I'm okay with that. Because if I was to run for president or whatnot, which I think I might if nobody runs against Biden, I might actually run for president in the Democratic Party. But then if somebody does, then I might run for Congress and in 2024, because I can help fix problems, not just create more. But we'll get into that a little later. But this lady, I watched her belittle her husband. And my last job I had, it was so toxic. And I'm a super intelligent guy. So for me to go into a lab and just constantly be screwing up, because they're so stressed out that my brain doesn't function properly like it should, like it normally does. And I'm usually super good about stress handling. Like I can usually function. So that's how bad it was. Like I was getting emails at night about how I was going to get fired in the morning. And then I would call my boss in the morning and he would go, "I don't know what you're talking about. Go to work. I don't, why are you calling me so early? Blah, blah." I mean, that's the kind of bullshit. And so that stress added up to where I had trouble being a scientist at work, where I never had any issues before. So let's think about what this lady did to her husband by belittling him. Now that guy's under so much stress that he can't watch the kids properly. So, because he's worried about what his wife's going to do. That's his thinking. That's where his thinking's at. And this is why positive reinforcement works on animals and not negative reinforcement. Because that negative just prevents that violence and stress to where that animal isn't going to develop and grow better. So if she should absolutely go to freaking therapy, and she should absolutely back off her husband, and he would actually have more focus on the kids. Now, what if we were to have universal health care? This is not free health care because we already pay taxes.
Right.
So if we had universal health care, the cops would be less stressed. And that less stress, oh, well, what if he got up that morning and he could get to the hospital and they found this cancer early? Instead, he goes to work under all that stress, and he's worried that this lump on his chest is like that. Yeah, what does that do to the cops' mental capacity?
Right. No, I get what you're saying. And that was, and see, that's when, I tried to explain to people, and I'll do it here, the importance of having things like a registry and insurance is, if you have an insurance company, and let's just say there's the fact that there's about 6 million households that keep reptiles. Well, if just 50,000 of those people did a $60 a month payout into insurance, that's what $30 million. Do you think an insurance company is going to let, or I can't say they can't stop them, but you think they're not going to be at those legislative meetings too? If they stand to lose $30 million a year, they're going to be there right next to USARK.
That's a fantastic point.
You guys don't have to pay for anything. We'll pay for the lawyers, because if they ban this shit, that's $30 million plus potential of us gaining more money. So if we got all 5 million households to get insurance, that's billions of dollars that an insurance company could stand to make. And then with the registry, it makes you look more structured. It gives you, so with USARK, when you donate money to them, you get nothing. With a registry,
you get a t-shirt.
Right, I don't want that shit. So if you donate, it's not even a donation. If you register an animal with me, one, you're getting a registration certificate that's printed on linen and cotton paper, just like the money, so it's bonded. You're getting that for transfer ownership. You're also getting, you're basically putting money into a system that is going to hold it. Of course, I'm going to get paid, like I said, at Dillon's, because I'm working it. And ink and paper, that shit costs money. So, but just imagine, again, 50,000 people spending $5 an animal on a registry. If you only have a few, I even had annual packages of like $600 for the year and unlimited registration. So if people did that, you could literally amount to 10, 20, $30 million a year, and you could pay off legislation, no problem. But you wouldn't have to ask for donations, because people are like, hey, I want to get papers on my animals. I want them to get registered. I want to start having shows and not just expos. You can't just, like I said on Dylan's show, you can't, in the dog world, you can't just say you're the best, even though people do. Yeah. But we know, you go to a Presa Canario, you go to 20 Presa Canario websites, they all say #1 breeder in the country. Well, everybody can't be #1. You know what I mean? And, and I always throw them a curveball, and I say, well, 0 is the first number. So if you're #1, then I'm 0. So I come before you, just to mess with their heads, just to make them think. I'm like, everybody can't be #1. But the thing about the dog world is you have to prove in the show that you're the best. You can't just say it. In the reptile world, you can just say it and people will believe it, and they'll tell everybody else, oh, he's the best, even though he may be the worst.
Yeah, this apartment's not big enough for my 6-pack. That's a joke. I don't really have a 6-pack. But when I talk to people, it's interesting that it's almost like gun control. When you talk to actual responsible keepers, they want more laws. Like, overwhelming amount of freaking reptile keepers want more laws. But people that I talk to, a lot of them, we should have a registration of the animals. Be forced to do it, basically. I'm not really okay with forcing people to register every single reptile. There are some that definitely should, but it's a good thing. It's absolutely a good thing, especially if we get insurance out of it and stuff like that. But I'm definitely for actually making people take a test and
You know,
pay
it's funny you said
$20.
that. I was going to say that I've been saying that for 10 years. I'm like, dude, if
And
you want to keep an animal, you need to take a test.
yeah, and that's what one of the guy from Reptile Fight Club said. He said they have one in Utah if you want to keep a local animal. And the things that should be on the test are like what's difference between humidity and air temperature versus surface temperature. How do you measure this? How do you like wild caught versus captive bred? How do you surrender your animals? How to read a light bulb. It's amazing how many people don't know how to read a light bulb. And then things like the Ferguson zones. These are just super general things. I was talking to a young man on a aquarium Facebook thing, and he's like, I have a gecko, and I was like, yeah, the Lacey Act and stuff, and it's like, well, if the Lacey Act passed, if you get caught with those animals crossing state lines, even if it's a mistake, all your animals will get put down, all of them, because they're not going to have a place to keep them. That's not how that's going to work, and that's already been what's happened. And so I'm like, okay, so we need to have a law more like this where you pay $20 to take this test. And then the Ferguson zone. And he goes, what's the Ferguson zone laws? What's that? I'm like, that's not a law. This something biologists came up with to show the percentage of UV per distance away from the source. And so that's very interesting to me that not everybody understood that. And if we did that, and you went after actual, so you cannot sell to anybody that doesn't have a license. If nobody in the party has a license, then they cannot come into a reptile expo or an exotic animal expo. And so at least one person in the party has to have a license. It's just a basic thing, nothing fancy, nothing. $20. If you can't afford $20, you can't afford the damn pets to begin with.
Right.
And so this would actually force like the big chain pet stores to actually carry what they want, because you've just educated the public. So when the public goes in there and doesn't buy these normal things that they sell, they'll have to put stuff on the shelf that actually sells.
Right. Well, there's about 25 states now that are, drawing up, drafting bills to basically ban the sale of pets in pet stores. They want to do away with animals in general in all 50 states. They don't want you to keep anything. There's counties in California. I can't remember the name of the particular county, but they don't want dogs, cats, fish, anything.
This is why I'm doing what I'm doing, and this is why I'm trying to get with people from different states, and we're going to do the laws and stuff of different states.
But people, the problem is, man, you do have some people who are all about it and doing the right thing, but the majority of the people think that it's a joke, it'll never happen, they don't care, they're going to continue doing what they're doing, no matter what you say, no matter what you show them. They're just like, yeah, whatever, dude. You know how many times I've heard people say, I didn't support USARK because the animals that I was keeping weren't in danger. And I'm like, well, it's supposed to be a community. It shouldn't matter if the animals you're in danger with or not. These are the people you're talking to on Instagram. So if they get banned and you don't care. It's basically what I get from that. And, I'm very direct, man. And I
work with scientists.
So it's...
And I mean, scientists, like people that actually have degrees in science and are actually doing studies. And I'm going to tell you, I go to them and I say, okay, so we've seen that they say that the Supreme Court's going to overrule Roe v. Wade. Well, no, they're not going to do that. No, that's not going to happen. Okay, it just happened. Man, that's fucked up, man. That's really messed up. And then they're like, oh, well, he said he's going to go after same-sex marriage and sodomy and basic and birth control and all these different things. And they're like, oh, well, they're not going to do that. We've already seen this show, buddy. What the fuck are you talking about? You literally just said they weren't going to overrule Roe v. Wade. So now you're saying they're not going to do other things? Are you out of your mind?
Yeah, well,
Fix your shit.
The North American attitude is it's purely ego here. I mean, if you think about it, you got Brittany Griner who went to Russia with weed in her bag and got caught when she knew it was illegal over there.
I don't think you're 100% correct on this one. This is a very interesting topic, and in my head I'm going, there's got to be something else here. There's got to be something else here, and I think I figured it out. I think I actually figured it out. Okay, so in Europe, in like Denmark, so when I go to work, I do 5 miles over the speed limit, and I get past like there ain't nobody's business. Every single morning, people just flying past me, and I'm doing 5 miles over the speed limit. It's like, no, that's not acceptable, buddy. You're going to get somebody hurt. And I've seen workers on the side of the road, and it's just like, okay, so why are they doing this? Is this ego? Like, this sounds like it should be ego. Well, in Denmark, what they did was because people were running into houses like they do here, they actually took the roads, shrank them down, made them more narrow, and added more curves into them because people don't recognize how fast they're going on straightaways. And then the further we push buildings away from the actual road, the more that they don't actually recognize their own speed because they're on straightaways. So they're not actually as worried about it. It's like I've been driving. This is why I tell people that personally, I'm better than most 20-year keepers when it comes to reptiles because I put more thought into taking a shit than a normal person does in their whole life. So honestly, what happens is they just get complacent and without anything to readjust their complacency, and you have to force a readjustment. They're not going to do it on their own.
I would agree with that in some instances, and like the one that you just said, like I would agree with that. I wouldn't agree with it in her case because she knew what she was doing. I mean, she's very arrogant. I mean, she talked a lot of crap about this country. You know how it was bad, it was this, that, and the other, and then you did something. Come on, you didn't know that you packed cannabis oil in your bag with every. I don't even watch no one watches WNBA. But everybody knows that she smokes weed because she said it openly so many times. But now, my point about it was now she's over there and she's basically like, well, I'm American, so you should send me back. So you think that you can go to other people's countries and break laws? And then it's like what's his name? I can't remember his name. The guy over in Singapore back in like 93, 94. He went over to Singapore, Michael Fay. And he was spray painting over there. And they don't play that shit. You're not even allowed to chew gum in the street over there. I've been over there. You can't smoke in the street over there. Like, they will beat your ass. And he was over there spray painting. And they caned him. I think they gave him like 4 or 6 lashes. But his argument was, I'm American. You can't do this to me. So it's like, so you think that you can go to someone else's house and mess their stuff up and then say, oh, I don't live here, so you can't do anything to me? But if someone comes over here and does that, then they should be able to do the same thing, right? And they're like, well, no, you came over to here and you messed things up, so you got to face the punch. It's, it's a double standard. I agree with what you said about the driving thing in most cases. But in her case, she got what she deserved. I know a lot of people will say, I'm like, nah, dude.
Well, she probably, even if it was a lapse in judgment, how do you not recognize that you need to be super careful?
Well, you're not even allowed to travel with cannabis on the plane here from state to state. So why would you think that you would be able to do it from country to country?
Well, she probably forgot it in the bag. And
well, that's what she said. I mean, I don't believe that, but
I don't know. Even if it's true, why didn't somebody check her bags?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Or why didn't she check her bag more? That means that even if she did forget, that she didn't take the proper steps.
But she's been over there before, so she took it over there before. And and to be honest, they probably only did it because of what's going on right now.
Yeah.
But she's taken it over there before, so it's not the first time that she's done it. But this is what they won't tell you if you watch certain news stations. They're going to make it seem like, oh, she's totally innocent. She didn't know this, that, and the other. And I'm like, dude, she's been shitting on this country for 2 or 3 years. Like LeBron James, they talk so much crap about this place. But if they didn't live here, LeBron James wouldn't be a millionaire. No one would know who he was. No one would care who he is. But I'm like, dude, if you got all that money and you hate it over here so bad, why are you still here?
Because you back to the union thing that we were kind of talking about earlier. I hear so many people talking crap about unions. And it's like, do you understand that when we work together, we have more power and that people should be fighting for that? But, God, I was kind of hoping to wait for this because there's so much that goes into this stuff. But it's like the number one argument against unions that I hear are where the company's going to leave this country. Where the fuck are they going to go? You constantly people telling other people, well, leave and go to another country, leave and go to another country. And it's like, do you not understand that we could say that to companies? Because honestly, we hold the power. And it's like, and I've worked at so many companies that just do not pay a living wage. And so it's like, if you have the power and you tell other companies, hey, go to Europe, guess what happens? There's more restrictions in Europe than there are here.
Right.
Overwhelming.
Exactly.
So it's like, so that company's going to be up shit creek going to Europe.
Right.
They don't even have the same Skittles we do here because of the laws over there are so different.
Exactly. No, exactly.
So where are they going to go? If you go to communists, they own part of your company. And if you go to Africa, I've always thought, why do they not have more stuff in Africa? Well, for one, by the time their government's so corrupt, by the time that you have landed the plane for your company's gone.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's like you said, there's so many regulations and restrictions. By the time you have to pay them all off, your company's not going to be making very much money because it's all going to be going to the governments. And that's what I was saying. It's like, how can you talk all that crap about here when this country made you what you are? Go try to do that somewhere else, and I guarantee you won't be a millionaire. It's not going to happen.
And there's zero reasons that anybody in the world should have $2 billion. There is not a single person in the world who truly earned $2 billion. I think even Mark Cuban, who first company sold for $2 billion, basically said something similar. It's like, I don't really need $2 billion. Nobody needs $2 billion.
You don't. So you're never going to spend it.
Exactly.
And what are you going to spend it on? Like, you couldn't spend it all. If you spent money every day, unless you just bought $1 million houses. You know what I mean? If you bought $1 million house.
And then even then you have property.
But then you have to pay property taxes. So now you got to spend more. You bought the house, but now you got to pay state property taxes. So you're losing money there. You buy another property. Now you got to pay property taxes on that house and on that house and on that house. And then you get to this one county, and like, yeah, well, we don't even allow that here. So because I ran into issues like that when we were trying to build a house in a county, and they were like, yeah, well, we're not issuing permits anymore for storage container homes or tiny homes. So yeah, you got this land now, and now, if this is what you want to do, we're not going to allow you to do it here. And it's like, wow, well, when did you start doing that? And they're like, oh, well, we just started doing that like 2 months ago. And I'm just like, wow. So, then things change in an instant. And because you don't have the remote control, you can't really, you can't push the button. You can't turn the volume up or down. You have to wait for someone else to do it for you. And it may not be to your direct benefit.
See? All right, now we're talking.
Oh, okay.
See, like this right here, is something that this is world politics. When you're talking about the United States, you're literally talking about this up here, this blue. This is this is basically the only politics that we actually have in this country. So when they're talking about socialism, which is all the way down here in this green, and they've actually plotted a bunch. We see these down here. We see Donald Trump and Hillary from back then. See, Bernie Sanders is down here in the green, but he's not all the way over here into the actual socialism category. But yet everybody calls him a socialist. But yet it's closer to that. This is actually what you're talking about when they talk about world politics, that there's these 4 quadrants. And we literally live in this one. And you can see where, you know, Donald Trump's up here. You don't get much closer to see, Pence is over here. Biden's down here. See, Biden's probably closer to Trump than he is to actually Bernie Sanders. Harris, I mean, I'm sure even DeSantis is closer to up here. Where do you go after this? Like, literally, when people are like, oh, well, no, Trump's policies and everything were great. It's like, no, you're getting closer to what Hitler actually did. When people, like, actually legitimately, these are techniques that Hitler and the Nazi Party actually put in place. This is not what most people want to hear, but where are you going to go from here? Like, the further you move right, you're not actually changing anything. And we want change in this country. So when you drop all this bullshit pretext that the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are so different, no, they're almost exactly the bloody same.
Well, a bird can't fly without both wings. So
exactly. And so,
I mean, the parties are totally different than what they used to be, even the people that are in them. I mean, and there's a lot of history, especially behind the Republican Party, that a lot of people don't know. You know, the Republican Party was actually started by a black man. And generally during that time, almost all black people were voting Republican because it was Republican who freed them, who freed the slaves. And, you know, the Republican Party who funded the NAACP and wanted to get rid of Jim Crow, you know, and all that other stuff. But if you look at it now, it's totally different. And all those, that particular group of people, they're all Democrats now, not understanding that the Democrats were
Republicans switched. Yeah.
Right.
Sometimes
they funded the KKK. They didn't want you to vote. You'd still be a slave if it was up to them. But somehow along the way, they switched.
Yeah.
And, you know, when you get into that, you know, they talk about that particular group of people like a dog. I mean, some of the stuff that they said, like black people they don't know how to get IDs. You know, they don't know how to get to the DMV. You know, they don't know how to use the internet. And then you have a guy saying, hey, you're not black if you don't vote for me. And I'm like, well, if I don't have an ID, how am I supposed to vote for you? You just told the whole world that I'm so dumb that I can't even get an ID or get to the DMV, but you just told me to vote for you, but I can't vote without an ID. But now voter laws, having an ID is racist. But you need an ID to get a house. You need an ID to get a job. You need an ID to buy cigarettes. So I guess all that stuff is racist too. So
one thing that John Nash did, the guy from The Beautiful Mind, is his equations, I think, were predicated on economy and they used it for bacteria. And that's what got him the Nobel Prize. It's either that or it's reversed, that he did it for bacteria and it went for economy. It's one or the other. So we need to understand that economics, math, is actually similar to bacteria. It's to living organisms. And if you have a straight line in a living organism, it's dead. It has to have a functionality. It has to have movement. And chaos theory It's a noise and stuff you're talking about. So if this is a living system, if the economics is, you can't just have a straight line. So now we want this country to have this straight line that just goes up. And all the policies that the United States has right now are basically sending it straight up into, oh, well, it's in an incline upwards. It's like, no, that's still death. That is still going to kill us as a country. So the way I've always looked at this is, if you want to actually, because I don't know of any strategy on this chart that actually lasts. I don't know of anything on here that has actually been proven to last, no matter what anybody tells you. So here's the thing, right here in this middle. If we can stay here, but you can't just sit here, because then you're in decline. You're going to have a straight line. So you actually need to have this circling, this area, moving the ball. And that would create, if you looked at it as a linear graph, you would look at it like this, to where it actually goes up and down like bacteria should. COVID is a great example of this. We tend to want to believe that these things just stay the same. It's the same thing over massive years. No, it's always mutating. It's always changing. It has to.
Yeah, it has to come. Movement is life. If you don't move, like you said, then anything that's not moving is inanimate and it's not alive.
Yes. So, a good virus does not kill its host. It adapts with it, but eventually it's going to create a mutation that possibly will kill its host. Over time, and then it has to mutate past that to where, and that's where we're getting into that. Zika seems to have mutated into a strain that actually is more, what's the word I'm looking for? It's, everybody can get it. It's more
transmissible, yeah.
Yes, but yet it's not killing as many people.
Right.
And that's a good virus. That's what a good virus does.
Right.
And so that's what we need in the economics, is this up and down. And if you're not doing that, you've basically doomed this. And that's why this is such bad business practice in the whole first place.
Well, that's the same thing in the reptile world. I mean, it's a straight a straight line, and then you have some people who are doing like that, and then it goes back to straight, and then it'll go down, and then it goes back to straight. But most of the time, it's just straight. You know what I mean? And then you have 5 or 6 people who are doing the right thing, so it goes up, then it comes back down, and it goes back again. And that's the thing, and it's just being accepted, and no one wants to challenge it. And some people do want to challenge it, but they don't challenge it because they're like, oh, I don't want to get blacklisted. I don't want them to stop me from getting animals. And I hear people say that all the time. If I speak out against them, then I'm not going to be able to buy carpet pythons.
I don't see anybody getting fucking blacklisted like they should.
No, I mean,
I really don't. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah, it's all talk. Who's going to really stop you from getting in? There's millions of people that have these animals just here alone and that sell them. So how is, like, someone like Chris Foley and David Means told me, because they demanded that I turn over my notes from Indonesia to them. Like, first of all, no, not going to happen. We can have a conversation, but you don't demand. Like, you're a lesser person than I am. Yeah, so you can't demand anything from me when you're not even above me. 2, like, how are you going to stop me and I import from getting anything and you don't import? You've never been to Indonesia. You're over here. Only thing you can talk to me about is captive breeding. I mean, these guys, when I started bringing Halmahera scrubs over here, David messaged me on Instagram and told me I needed to stop.
This is interesting. And in this hobby, I don't fully disagree. It's an interesting conversation. And just like politics, it's not black and white. There's no wrong or right. It's something that we have to work out. It's not something that we can just say, this is the correct answer, everybody else is wrong. But it's interesting. So many people are like, okay, so you only want to get captive bred And it makes sense for most keepers because they don't properly know how to take care of a sickly animal. So
Right.
yes,
But
but
this is
yet,
the thing, right? Well, David didn't know my background. He doesn't know anything about me. You know what I mean? And it wasn't even he wasn't worried about the animals. He just wants to be the first. And that's the problem.
yeah, that's not.
If I was
Yeah.
Stephen Cush, not a problem. He wouldn't have said anything to Stephen. If I was Forrest or Brian or Kevin, not a problem. You know, but you stop because I don't know enough about the animals to give people the information. Well, I know more than you about scrubs, so I don't need I don't need any information from you. You've never even been over there. So we can't even have a conversation. You know, it's like trying to have a conversation with someone who only knows reptiles about dogs. It's not going to be a very interesting conversation because if you're learning about dogs, the person who knows dogs, he's going to be doing 90% of the talking. You know what I mean? You're going to be listening and learning. You know, you can't, how are you going to out-talk someone on something you don't know?
Exactly. There's David Kaufman did that video for Africa. And one of the things that he found, like, he didn't see any of the normal animals you think to see. Because the Africans killed them all because they needed food and stuff. Well, okay, so the reptiles still existed. Well, the only reason why the reptiles still existed was because they found money in the pet trade. And so they actually took care of the animals. So this is interesting. So if we don't keep the importation pet trade alive, then conservation around the world will suffer. And to do this, we actually need to increase the pocket, not the American dollar, the American pocket, to actually increase this kind of behavior. Right. And the way to do that is unions. And actually, if we house the homeless, we would save money. But the reserve said something massively interesting that I thought. And this is something Americans do not understand. See, unemployment is measured not by the amount of people that are not working. It's measured by the amount of people not working looking for a job.
Right.
So if that amount of people is high, the reserve says when it's high, they can actually keep cost of labor down. So basically, they can keep the American paycheck down. And that's kind of part of the reason why they're doing the rising of the federal rates. And because that's literally what the reserve said. It's not a like, oh, well, this is what no, they actually said that. Because that's the problem in this country, not price gouging. Right now in 2022, if anybody's seeing this in massive years beyond. So if we actually house the homeless, of which a lot of them, like a certain percentages, are family. I was almost homeless going to college. I heard about this lady who was in a degree program to get her MD, and she was homeless. There's this family that's homeless that I heard about that literally both have the parents have degrees and they can't. And so they actually made it illegal and took their RV. And so it's like, no, now these people are completely homeless and it's illegal to be homeless. And it's like, no. So we would actually save money. And the reason why we would save money on the homeless is because we're not paying their medical bills at their house. And housing doesn't have to be an actual house. Like they actually have these sheds that have 2 sheeters in them that are like $1,200 to put in place. It's not that expensive to put a freaking house. And then these people don't have to go to emergency rooms more. They don't have to spend their efforts extra hard to try to find a job and increase the unemployment rate. And so if we do that, and I'm not for sure how much this is going to do, but any amount is going to help lower that unemployment rate. And that's why right now we're seeing people getting a little bit higher paychecks in this country because there's not a high unemployment rate.
Right.
So companies are going, no, we have to pay people more. There's not a work shortage. It's actually doing well for people. So we have to keep that unemployment rate down. And that's one way to do that. And people don't understand that. They're like, well, I don't want to give handouts. There was a picture that I seen where these kids took this teacher's bearded dragon out into a hall and fed it a bug that might be wild. And this person that was wearing a mask, so they were probably a liberal, and they were mouthing off about this dragon. They're like, oh my God, that's an appropriate closure. That's an appropriate feeding wild. It's like, yes, but yet you didn't ask a single question. You don't have a single understanding of the context. This person, as a teacher, is not making shit. Nobody that is working a 40-hour work week should not be able to afford to have a bearded dragon and still have savings. That is ridiculous. That should be a standard that is the reptile community should be keeping 40-hour work week thinking. That if you can't have a bearded dragon, you are not getting paid enough. And so if a teacher has to have a sponsorship, and this person didn't even understand sponsorship, probably didn't even care. And it's like, no, so this teacher is not making enough. And so she probably got a sponsorship from a freaking giant pet store that isn't selling the proper stuff. And then we don't even know how far their sponsorship goes. We should be asking about this. And if you want to complain, you should be doing more about this. You should be helping this person more. But as a community, we should be thinking of a way to deal with this sponsorship issue. And it's like, because this isn't going to stop. It doesn't help the pet stores to stop. So we have to do it as a community. And we have to help teachers that have this. We can't say that you can't have this. It's just one of those things that it's going to happen no matter what. But this lady's like, no, I don't like handouts. I don't like handouts. It's like, then screw you. Then get the fuck out. I don't give a shit. Stop bitching. You're bitching and you don't want to do anything about it. Well, I'm sitting here going, no, as a community, we should actually learn what's happening here and we should deal with this. God, what was it the other day? Oh, what's your thoughts?
No, I agree with you on just about all those points. I think, like especially like with the import thing, keeping some of these animals from going extinct. But then also at the same time, it's unfortunate, like just keeping it on that particular subject, that they're really only bringing the animals. Like, I don't know. I mean, I saw that video that he did. I wasn't really impressed, just because at the end he's like, yeah, just continue to keep them in little tubs, no problem. That I didn't like that. Like, damn, you spent all this time to go over there to tell us people who are already doing that to keep doing that, but you're showing like these huge environments. But he made it a point to find morphs, because that's the main thing. Is so now I'm going to get these animals and I'm going to bring them back over here and I'm going to ruin the genetics of them. So we got to keep them alive. You know, I don't know. I've noticed that once things come over here, you know, even with dogs, they have this bigger is better attitude and things like that, and we want to shape it to how we want it to be, even if it's not the best for the animal's health or temperament. And I see a lot of that, you know, because I'm not a big morph guy. My partner does morphs, but I'm very particular even on how he breeds, because the inbreeding, I can't speak to what happened to the animals before they came into our facility, but when they're there, we don't get down like that. I'm here. I'm just in my kitchen. Good.
I perfectly understand. The finishing up kind of my thought that I just remember what I was trying to think of. You know, we have brain farts like every. Right. I actually wonder if reptiles have brain farts like that. It's actually something I'd like to do a little research in.
Well, you know, there's one subject that I want to do some more research in about reptiles, and I've actually started doing it over the last year, is how they have come up with the scale for the age of 1 human year to a dog year. And they used to say that it was 7 years. Well, now they say that it's 13 years to 1 human year. But No one's ever done that for reptiles, but we have this standard that at 3 years most reptiles are mature enough to breed. That's what they say for most species.
Yeah, I thought alligators didn't actually age. They actually,
I mean, there's, like I said, there's so many things that have the research just hasn't really touched on. Like, what is
you really have to get into stuff like I was doing, the research like I was doing in college, where I was studying how to target like cancer cells with polymers. Because once you get into that polymer word, polymer's DNA, and that's really where that stuff lies. And that's what, like, when you talk about polymers, most people think plastics. No, I studied how to target cancer cells, Zika, Ebola, stuff like that. It's fascinating. But going back to that lady saying that, oh, well, we don't give handouts. I'm not okay with giving a handout. If we actually gave people the basics to live that didn't want to work, it would actually raise everybody else's paycheck because it would lower unemployment. And then since they're not homeless, we're not paying their medical bills, so it might actually be cheaper in the long run for us to do that. I don't think it's that bad of an idea to let people who don't want to work have the bare minimum. We're not talking $600 a week or unemployment. It's the bare minimums to get by. And so everybody else that wants to work can actually have a bigger paycheck. Because if that's how that works, and like I said, that's what the Federal Reserve said, the higher the unemployment, the more people looking for jobs, the less they have to pay you because they have somebody in the waiting that'll take the job. So if we don't have as many people waiting, you get a higher paycheck. I think that's actually reasonable, I think. But
that sounds like New York and their rent laws, because they don't really have rent laws there. So they can raise the rent on you. Like, you can be in your apartment paying $2,200, and then you'll get a letter, and they're like, yeah, we're raising the rent to $3,000. Like, literally, they'll do this. Either you pay it or get out, because they've already got 100 other people that are ready to move in and that can afford it until they raise the rent again.
That's
crazy.
That is a super fair point. If we don't have as many people looking for places, then rent goes down. That's supply and demand. That's just that. And like this apartment that I live in, this is god awful. Like, I don't know if this is actually human cockroaches coming out of the toilet, freaking air conditioners not working, freaking I don't actually know if this is inhabitable. Once it passes 95 degrees, that air conditioner that they had in here is shit.
Right.
And it once it passes 75 degrees, you can't be in the bedroom. I had to put an air conditioner in the bedroom. And then all my enclosures and stuff, tripping breakers because of the air conditioning units having to be put in. And it's not actually the lights. The lights, we plugged in all my lights. That's 2 basking lights. That's 4 basking lights because it's 2 enclosures. 2 3-foot UVB bulbs and fixtures, and 2 grow light 2-foot deals, all on the same deal. How many amps do you think that pulled?
Shit, I'm not so familiar with amps, but it sounds like probably, because most houses, apartments are have less amps than houses per unit, right? So,
well, that depends on the apartment. Depends on the electric.
Because I know houses.
It says it's supposed to be 15 amps per outlet.
Right. I was going to say, I know houses.
4 amps that whole thing took for all that lighting. 4 amps.
And you probably only got, maybe 50 in there to spare?
Yeah, so plugging in an air conditioner or a heater automatically just drains that. And you're tripping breakers. You're like, it's bullshit. I even did a whole video on reptile lighting versus landlord because my landlord was a piece of shit. And you're going to burn the place down. It's like, well, if this is an apartment so bad with electric, then I got to move. Right. Well, okay, we'll make it do. We'll let you pay the $1,600 in payments. I'm not paying you a fucking dime if your electric's so bad that I can't live here.
Right.
That's not okay. We're not doing that. And yeah, it was bullshit.
Yeah, no, I know. Like even when I bought this house, I mean, it doesn't. It has half the amps that you would normally get in the house. Like my box is 100 amps, but me, I don't leave anything plugged in that I'm not using. So the only thing that is plugged in would be like my dishwasher, my fridge, my grow lights, my heater, like little things. But washer and dryer, if it's not being used, it's not plugged in. You know, all my kitchen stuff back here, deep fryer, panini press, none of that stuff is plugged in unless I'm using it. Like, you know, I try to keep everything here like at a minimum, you know, if I can. And I like to penny pinch, like regardless.
Oh, yeah.
I do a lot of investing. So, you know, I'd rather take that $10 or $20 that would be spent on a utility bill and buy some stocks. You know,
and this is why I'm for overhead heating over like the under the tank heating and stuff, because those are going to probably pull more amps than the overhead lighting will.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
because like what is it like? I think the five. I guess one light bulb is like a little less than an amp or something like that.
Yeah, that's literally like with those four basking bulbs. Basically, you were looking at maybe 2 amps.
Yeah, because I think the equivalent like regular house lights are like if you have 5 of them running, that's like 5 amps of power that's being used around that amount. So
I mean, I like that kind of stuff. So thinking, and I got a degree in physics, so we can work on that all day. Let's see what else we got here, because this was some of the stuff that I was wanting to look at to kind of show people where to go for federal laws.
Yeah, I mean, for anybody who wants to check out Congress votes and Senate votes and
literally what was it?
Votes.
So the Lucy Act amendment thing here for USARK, what is it? This right here was the actual amendment. The information about this Lucy Act amendment. See, it's Mark Rubio that did it. I had one guy in line go, "Oh, well, yeah, the Biden administration." It's like, that's not how Congress works, buddy. This was Mark Rubio.
Right.
And it's actually this senator from Hawaii right here, Senator. Oh, I can't even say the name.
Schatz, yeah. It looks like.
Schatz Bryan from Hawaii. And that was a Democrat. Actually co-sponsored the bill, or the amendment to the bill.
You're not allowed to have anything in Hawaii. I think you can have dogs, but I don't think you can have cats. You can't have reptiles.
That's what I thought. That's kind of why I wasn't dogging on him so much, because that's Hawaii's a whole other category.
Right.
But then, so we can actually go to Brian's actual deal, and you can actually, and this is Congress.gov.
Yeah, I was going to say, you go to Congress.gov or Senate.gov,
and you can see everything he sponsors. Right. And what you should do is actually go down to these bills and look at these bills, but you should actually go in deeper. So you should actually look at the bill. What's it? A bill to authorize the Federal Communication Commission to specifically additional services from which the radio station. So you should look at these bills that they've introduced, and that's how you should base whether you actually want to vote for them or not.
Right.
They don't really see that. And so this way you're not, they've actually done studies that if you don't have Democrat or Republican on the actual ballot and you just have the person, people tend to do the Democrats over the Republicans. It's interesting. That taking away that insignia on the ballot is the same thing as actually shrinking the roads. You're taking away people's easy thinking, and you're making them put in that little bit of effort. And so that's why people vote differently. And so some of the things that I'd like to do, if I if I actually was president, I have ideas of how I could do it, but I don't think I can actually say it yet. But I would actually like to see Congress no longer be able to pass laws. I want them to design laws and the people vote on the laws. So now we've shrank the road and we've forced people to have to drive weirdly. So now this would create massive problems. But this also creates more dialogue between Congress and the people, because there's certain things that Congress should still have access to that Americans shouldn't. So they have to pass a bill that Americans okay with to get those powers back.
Well, that's what you ideally, in a perfect world, that's how it would go. I mean, it's the same. I tell people all the time, you don't ever wonder about your votes when. I mean, me personally, just for me in my household, I don't think that votes count in certain things, and the reason I say that is because it's awfully funny how we can vote these people in, but we, the people, are not allowed to vote them out. I'm like, so we got to go through a process of impeachment that we have no control over, but we're the ones who supposedly have voted for you. And some of these guys make laws based off how they're feeling or what they like and dislike. Like there's a mayor in Prince George's County, Maryland. That's the only county in Maryland that you are not allowed to have bully type dogs. And the reason why is because he literally has said it. He doesn't like the dogs because he got bit by one when he was a child. This dude is like 60 and he's still holding that grudge. So anytime that bill comes past his desk, he signs a big no on it because he doesn't like that particular breed.
What a fifth grader could have told us how to solve our federal problems early. It's stop voting people in. If you're like, I hate the government, so let's get out all the Democrats. I hate the government, so let's get out all the Republicans. What are you freaking talking about? They are the government, the whole thing.
Yeah, don't vote at all. Don't vote at all. And that I tell people that all the time, especially people that look like me. I don't think that's
the correct answer. Because that's the problem, I think, is what happened. Newt Gingrich passed that deal where to get into a committee, you actually have to have somebody fund you into a committee. So it is literally illegal in Congress to not be corrupt. They are literally grooming any newcomers into Congress. So even if you want to do good. And and so our votes, we showed over this last election that as a whole, our groups matter. So we have to be in it together. So the more divided they keep us, so the news actually has an incentive to keep us divided.
Well, it's the fourth branch of the government. You know, that's what they get paid to do. They get paid to lie to you. And that's what I was going to get at is like, because right now, white people are under attack. You know what I mean?
Oh God, yeah, the MAGA stuff.
Even by other white people. And so you have people that look like me who keep saying how racist white people are. And I say, okay, if you honestly believe that, why do you keep voting for them? Because if I don't like white people, or if I don't like black people, I'm not going to, and there's two parties, and this guy's white and this guy's white, I'm not going to vote for either one because I literally just said white people are racist and they're going to do something bad to me. I'm not going to vote. And it never made sense to me. And I'm just like, so are they? Or are they not?
We talk about it and we're like, oh, well, we want term limits. So many people are for term limits. Like it's a massive amount of the American people are for term limits. Then why are you voting them back into office?
Right.
Why? And then is it rigged so much that they just automatically get in? So then we have to fix that system. But then there's, I'm trying to think what I was trying to think earlier too. MAGA. There was a study done. I think it was 1/3 of the people who stormed the Capitol were white males who were from rural areas where over the last 5 years or so, the area grew massively in colored people. So the fear that they're being replaced, that they're going to lose out. Well, I'm from super rural area. I'm from so rural that they didn't put the house that I grew up on Google Maps till last 3 years. And so they often talk about pulling yourself up from your bootstraps. I worked at Lazy Boy and got a degree in physics. I pulled my shit up out of that. If you think that you're going to be replaced, then improve yourself. Right. That's what, like, people often, guys, well, women are shitty. It's like, no, you need to improve yourself. Most advice in this world is not given for the person taking the advice. It's given for the person giving the advice. So when I hear that term, when women go, oh, well, be yourself. Be yourself. How do you get a girlfriend? Be yourself. Who the fuck have you been? Why have you been somebody else? What? Right. Oh, you haven't been somebody else? Then what the fuck is this person talking about? So yes, you should make a change. Depending on how many women, I've made a measurement. This is how I measure it now. Depending on how many women you believe would date you under different circumstances is how much you should change. If you don't have 3, then you've got big changes to make. If you've got 3, you've got little changes to make, like go out to different places, talk to different people, meet new people. Because apparently you've got enough clout that women might actually want to date you. And so that is actually constructive criticism. The criticism of be yourself is just the biggest bullshit I've ever heard. And that just shows you how much of our advice that is given to people is just that. It's just dribble coming out of somebody's mouth.
Yeah, no, I mean we're living in very awkward, odd times right now, man. It's I mean, I live in rural America. There's 5,000 people in the town that I live in, and 4,900 of them are white, and the other 103 are black. Hell, the black people here, they don't even speak to me. I know all my other neighbors though. They all know me. They all know my dogs. They don't have a problem. I mean, this is. I'm
the same way as my neighbors, and they're all black, basically. I mean, it's like I have no issues with that. It's like, no, and you know how much it makes their days to see my little reptiles, and they can hold them, and it's like, oh my god, living in the shitty ass apartments. It's just that little bit of hope in their lives, and so studies have showed that the way to deal with a conspiracy theory person, because it's an actual addiction, is for therapy. So you have to treat it like it's an addiction. So also going back to the stress thing. So if we can relieve the stress by actually passing laws that actually relieves the stress, we might actually shrink the amount of MAGA people in the world. Be able to do that by actually shrinking their stress, by actually having universal health care and housing laws and things like that. Because, I mean, honestly, a lot of the jobs the foreign people are taking are jobs Americans don't want to do. I mean, so...
Yeah, that's a fact, for sure. I mean, but the newer generations don't want to work anyway, you know.
And I'm fine with that, but they don't deserve to have extra stuff. You get the bare minimum.
And their thing is they're trying to be social media famous. That's the new thing. Social media is the new standard of life. You know, oh, TikTok will pay me, Instagram will pay me, YouTube will pay me. So the girls are half naked. I got to dance. I got to do this. The guys are on there making stupid reels. Trying to.
What's one of the ways we could fix that? By increasing the American paycheck.
Yeah, I mean, for some, I think for the newer, I think that would only really help certain age group. I think these newer generations are kind of like they're stuck where they are. I think it's because they're like the job satisfaction thing. I don't think they really understand what that means. But when they see someone saying, on who came from just out of nowhere and then they're on social media, and then this person take the girl from Florida, the white chick from Florida, the Catch Me Outside girl. I can't remember her name, but she literally was on Dr. Phil, cussed him out, had a catchphrase. That girl's a millionaire now.
Yeah.
She became a millionaire literally overnight. So women see that. Young girls her age see that. They don't give a fuck what kind of paycheck you're offering them, because that girl did nothing, and now she's a millionaire.
Well, the American public needs to understand that studies have actually been done that show that money does buy happiness, but it's like $75,000. Everything after that does not improve happiness.
I mean, a lot of people don't even know how to use. It's like you get money, everyone wants it, but they don't really ask what it is or how to use it. So then they don't use it properly.
And we're not taught that in schools.
Right, exactly. So, you're just, because I tell people all the time, if money was as important as you think it is, you wouldn't spend it. You would save, you would just hoard it. But you use it to get things that you like.
But that goes back to the addiction stuff.
Right.
Facebook and everything's so addictive. And these companies have found such ways to cultivate that. So you actually need to change the brain chemistry of people. And I understand why my brain chemistry is different. And I do want to actually do some episodes on this. Like I want to have Rex on from Rex Colubal Animals. He literally befriended a fish, a wild fish, which is really cool. And so I see that, and I'm talented. I'm smart enough to recognize other people's talents. That's actually a piece of intelligence to me. If you're just, I know it all, then you're a piece of shit, because I don't fucking know it all. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here talking to you at all. Like, I'm like, let's talk about this. Let's discuss this. I got a guy at work that I appreciate this type of talk. And I've figured so much else out by actually talking to this like this. And it's just one of those things that people don't recognize that. It's, no, this person's attacking me. And we need to recognize how to talk to people. I keep saying it, but I don't know why it's not caught on yet. So I hate the word rescue, because people think that it means that they are something special, that they're doing something great, and it just loses all meaning, and it goes into their ideology. And once it gets into their ideology, it's hard to change that, because it's like a shit brick house with no mortar. Once you start pulling on one brick, they think the whole house is going to collapse, so they have to protect it with their lives. Oh, no, don't pull that brick. And so it's an art form to actually pull that brick. And so that's what we're not being taught that. Like, okay, so I actually do talk to people out in public on politics all the time. Lady last night, I was at a bread company, and it's like, okay, so she's like, yeah, Donald Trump's the greatest and Biden's a piece of shit. It's like, I'm not a Biden fan. I can't believe we had to vote for him. That was crap. That was bullshit. And so, but I am definitely not a Trump fan either. Like, that's a no-no. But so let's talk about the politics. Let's talk about the actual issues themselves. And once people realize that you're not this, oh, I'm a Democrat and Republicans suck. I'm a Republican and the Democrats suck. And they realize, no, you're actually talking to them as a person. This is the issues that we're talking about, like housing the homeless. No veteran should ever have to be homeless. These are just, in college, I did a program called Enactus, the entrepreneur group. And we did a hydroponic system for an orphanage in Hades. That's awesome. You know how much that cost us? Like $300. Like, it's like, that's because we did it with no power. So it's just PVC pipes, plastics, tubs that they already had, and a freaking pump. I mean, it's that fucking simple. And now this orphanage in Hades has a way to teach children how to garden, a way to grow their own food. And if they grow their own food and they don't eat it, they can actually sell it for an orphanage. Now, I think about this shit, and it's like that's the kind of stuff that we should be doing. Now, Dylan had the guy on from Ukraine on his podcast.
Oh, from Beyond.
Yeah, I was like, dude.
Yeah, I've imported from them a couple times. Yeah, I'm familiar with them.
I thought about it. I'm like, you know what? When we realized that this guy was about to get into a war zone, that's the kind of thing that we should have done, is actually sent them the kit to do his own hydroponic system. So he could grow his own vegetables and actually probably save a ton more of his animals and his own people, like more. If we could have done that right before the war, how helpful could that have been for him if we'd have got him the pH and the nutrient stuff that could last him a year?
Right.
And how cheap that was. Even with the inflation, you're still looking at maybe $1,000. And he's got the pH stuff to do there anyways. He's an actual scientist, so it's not like... So I think about that, and it's like, well, we should be looking for that kind of stuff now. So where are war zones and places that actually have organizations like that are actually proper, that could use that little bit of help? And we're not talking about a ton of money either. That's the whole point.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's unfortunate that a lot of people like to wait to the last minute to do things, and this is just generally speaking. You know, like if you see something's getting ready to happen, I mean, it's like right now. Like anytime I go to Walmart or to a grocery store, it doesn't matter if I'm going in there to get a candy bar. I buy $30 worth of canned goods. My storage closet looks like a fucking supermarket. Because one, I've already known that what was happening now was coming, but they're telling you what they're going to do to you. Food shortages, September. Okay, well, that's fine. Cut it off. I got rabbits here. I got chickens here.
Yeah.
I got a deep freezer full of stuff. I got quail. I got hundreds of canned goods back there. Like, cut it off. Cut it off.
What was nice?
Go ahead.
What was nice in 2020 during the TP shortage? I had a bidet kit on my toilet. So it's like, I'm fine, guys. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, it's fine. Right. It takes a little bit to get used to. And so that's why everybody hates it.
I mean, if you've ever been over to certain countries in Europe, I mean, you're good. That's what they're going to have. But it's kind of, you know, people in general, man, humans, especially over here, are just like, nothing will ever happen to us because we live over here. And I said, well, you know, there was a group of people who said kind of had the same attitude. It wasn't as arrogant in Germany, and then they ended up in camps because they said the same thing. Like I interviewed a couple when I was in the 6th grade who survived the Holocaust, and I will never forget what she told me. The woman, the wife, and she said, you know, we never thought that it would happen to us, you know, where we lived. We never, you know. So they didn't prepare. They couldn't prepare because the mentality wouldn't let them prepare because they were like, this isn't really happening.
And this is the part that I don't understand, because we recognize that the business aspect that companies are taking is not long-term successful. China's actually going to be long-term successful because they don't have capitalism, because they're actually investing in the future instead of making as much profit as they can now. It's interesting when you actually compare this stuff, and that's just shit. And it's like we need to learn from that. And so if the government actually put some thought into it, well, one of the reasons why over the last few decades the American people never fought back is because we're not bored. People don't understand how much boredom rules the world. There's a bar over in Europe that actually gives at the end of the night, it gives suckers to people because they found that violence at the end of the night went down dramatically just from giving somebody a sucker, because boredom rules us. And so if we took away the entertainment, I think the American people would already be fighting back against the government.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree with that.
So if the government actually made it more comfortable for people to live in this country, the government would have even more control over the people.
Court. Well, that's kind of what they say they want to do. I mean, look at the prison system. You have some prisons. You have prisons that have 3,000 or 4,000 inmates and only like 100 guards. Why aren't you revolting? Because I'd be in prison. Like, are you kidding me right now? We could walk up out of here if we wanted to. Because by the time they call backup, the other operative forces to come in and help them, we're almost still going to outnumber them. We may not have weapons, but we can get some of, and this is just, hypothetical situation, but it's like, how do you keep 3,000 people under control with just 100 people supervising them and they don't fight back?
Yeah. Did you hear about the inmates suing the legislation in, I think it's Louisiana, because they're wanting to build 2 more prisons?
No, I mean, I'm not surprised, but
yeah, the inmates are actually suing them to keep them from building the prisons because the system's so jacked up that the prisoners are like, no, this is unacceptable. That's amazing to me. I love that kind of stuff. That's like, yes. And it's amazing how much of that actual federal funding that came from 2020 goes into federal prisons.
Oh, yeah. Well, for a while they were privatizing a lot of that stuff.
They still are.
I mean, it slowed down, but the fact that they're able to do that, and so then that way the owners of the prisons can pick and choose the crimes that they want to come into their house because every crime has a value. So,
and who pays that? The American tax dollars to give to private companies.
Give me a second, dude. I think my dogs are in here fighting each other.
Okay.
So unfortunately, Rain had to leave us. And you guys should go check out his website. It'll be in the description. And we're going to try to get him back. I appreciate his time. He had an emergency to go to, and we haven't been able to get back together. And it's been the 12th or the 5th since he's had this, of August 2022. So it's been a little bit, a couple of weeks, so lots happened since then. So we're just going to move on, and I'm going to finish this video, and then we'll get him back for Pennsylvania laws. Now, I don't know half the people that he talked about. There's a lot of YouTubers and people in the industry that I don't keep up with if I can't talk to them face to face, because most of their stuff is commercials, and like, I don't even like strip clubs. I'm straight, and I'm not a big strip club guy because I read body language. I've never been to a strip club where I was like, oh my God, that girl just wants me so badly. So every night you go home and you're just like, yeah, I was teased. I just felt like I was teased. That's the way reptiles feel to me when it's a commercial like that. It's like, well, I could buy that from him. I could buy that blue tongue. Oh, I could just, I like Frank Payne. He has some really interesting stuff. And I don't like watching him all the time because I just feel teased. I want some freaking scorpion tail geckos. I want some blue tongues. It's just, so that's why I don't know a lot of these names. Plus, I'm not a snake guy, so I might have passed up because of that. And I don't have nothing against snakes. I've held them, no problem. Just not my cup of tea, which is something that's important for us to understand. So let's understand things like unions can eventually become bad things. So eventually we have to adjust our politics from side to side. Like I was talking about, you have to keep it moving. You can't just say, oh, well, we're going to double down on this, even though it stopped working. We're just going to double down. No, that doesn't work. Snakes in tubs, he was talking about a locality, Dave Kaufman. And so it's, I understand, like it's another one of those super gray areas. So you might want to look at Okay, so they have all this wide open space, but they mainly spend their time in burrows. So when you design your enclosures, design it like that. That's probably a better option. So I daydream about doing a show and some of the products that I'm starting to make for St. Jude's. So if we took something like this and we actually let the kids at St. Jude's paint it and put it up for auction, that would go over really well. I think that would be something that would be awesome. And make them some money, get the kids some activities to do that they'll enjoy. This would be really cool. I can make rubber ones and give it to the kids and stuff. And then try to see if I can get as many people as I can that have reptiles to come down and do a show with me. But not an expo. A show to show off the animals, to have people come in, see them, and give to St. Jude's. So it came to my attention the other day. What if we did this for teachers? I will never, because after being labeled learning disability and having them take 10 years of my life from me, basically, because I was just a kid. I didn't know I was good at math. I didn't know that that meant a ton. And apparently the adults, including the teachers, didn't know. And that's unacceptable. Because if they just said one fucking time that, oh, well, you're great at math, stick with that, I might have gone into math already and have my degrees and stuff. And so in my 30s, I wouldn't be sitting here going to college and then coming out and having a job and trying to figure stuff out when I'm on the backside of 30s, where I would already have a career. I'd be just building up more. So I will never be accepting of the school system in any form that it takes today. So we need to redo the school system. And 2020 was the perfect opportunity to do that. And we didn't do it. It was unacceptable that you little bitches that thought, oh, well, math's going to take my rights away. You never give a fuck about the kids. You didn't actually give a fuck about the kids. Because if you did, you'd change the school system. That was the perfect time. I was getting blood one day, and the lady was like, oh, yeah, freaking kids today are stupid. They think the world is flat. I'm like, yeah, we need to change the school system. No. So this lady wanted change without making any changes. That doesn't work. You're an idiot. If you want change without change, you're an idiot. This is a very passionate thing for me. So if I were to put a show on like this for teachers, and actually we were to give the money to the teachers so they could actually go on strike, that would be worth something as well. Let's change that damn. Remember that if you're dealing with somebody who's probably part of MAGA or who is a conspiracy theory person, everything's got to be this. I'm on the end. Everybody else doesn't understand. I'm on the end. How could, everybody else is wrong. I can't just, oh my God, understand that it's often an addiction. So the best thing for you to do is to actually look up how to have an intervention. Then perform the intervention and try to get that person some help in some psychology. Because it is in itself an addiction. Just like pushing the like button on Facebook is an addiction. Or having other people push the like button on your photo or your video on Facebook itself is an addiction. Anything can be an addiction with the brain. So please learn, because if you really care about these people, figure out interventions and get them one. Show them that you love them unconditionally. They don't do this, you'll still love them. You just may not be able to be around them. There's a difference. No matter what happens, you'll always love them because they're your family. But you need to get them help as well. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you guys for being here for this. I hope this can be helpful. And I hope we can move on to this and not have to worry about 50,000 other things in this country. And we can just be happy and live our lives like we should be able to. We'll always need government. It's just one of those things that as long as people can't be trusted to do what's right for the world, we'll always need government. Which is, yeah, I know. It sucks. Like I said, I may run for office. I would have a hard time being super corrupt like a lot of those guys in office. But as you know from my psychological study videos, I'm not normal. I'm not a normal person. So you can't base me off of normalcy. PETA. Let's talk about something like PETA. Don't ever support PETA. PETA's a god-awful organization. They're probably one of the leading things that are trying to take our animals from us. Lobbyists, and they do have money because people donate to them. Stop donating to them. We're going to try to work out some of these local politics and where your money should be going locally and stuff. We're gonna work on all that. Yeah, I know politics isn't the greatest thing in the world. Me and Dylan from Animals at Home, we were talking about it, and he was like, "Oh man, your title, Reptiles and Politics, was too close to that podcast you were on, Reptiles Fight Club." Okay, I get how that's because Fight Club and politics. The only difference is spelling. I mean, I think we can all understand that, but hopefully we can see that I'm not an extremist and I have adjusting viewpoints as well as educated and understanding of deeper things. So hopefully you guys will keep on this journey with me, but I want to get into some bigger stuff here, some stuff that actually matters. And if we don't vote, if we don't go out and do our local elections, yeah, that's why we're going to start having people on that talk about laws in your local deals. Now, the thing about USARK, I just watched the video that was posted a day or so ago of Phil Gross explaining what USARK actually is. Now, he basically commits that everything that we talk about. I may do a reaction video to it. There's a lot of things on there that he talked about that was really contradiction to a lot of the stuff that we thought. There's also things like when he went to, I believe, Wisconsin or Michigan, where VivTech is. Ryan McVeigh actually had to go talk to the guy himself, but USARK helped that out, which is great. That's great. So that really shows us what we actually should be doing with the information coming out of USARK. Like I said, almost everything that Phil Gross said is what we complained about in this video. He basically just came out and said, yeah, that's what we do. We're not extra. And that's a problem on the people, because I don't know how many people actually heard him. They just automatically, well, we need somebody to save us. We need somebody to do it for us. That's just not going to work. So what we need to do is figure out locally, on local elections, we need to commit as a community, find somebody who is actually going to be able to present the reptile community positively in that area that's actually going to be able to do it in a way that that politician themselves is going to actually deal with better. Because you can't just shove somebody in there and go fix this. Go talk to this guy and make sure that he knows exactly what's happening. And it's like, no, that's not going to work. I'm sorry. Because you're going to get somebody in there that's going to be forceful and rude. And you may not want that. And as we know, politicians aren't the best people. So you may get a sleazeball that actually it's better to send a leader-style woman in because he's going to be more responsive to an attractive woman. There's just all these little kinks that you can play as a political game, and we have to. That's sad. We shouldn't be playing these political games. But like I said, the majority of Americans that I know that are reptile keepers want more laws. We want more regulations. We want more to help the animals. So I'm going to see about trying to get to other countries too, politics on other countries dealing with reptiles, so we can see the difference and where we might actually take from it. These are really cool things. But if we have to work on local elections, you have to understand local elections. We need to understand where we need to vote for. And this right here is where you go to figure out if you're registered to vote in your state, because they do vote purging, and that's a big deal. They will purge your name from the system. You don't have any choice in it. It's bullshit. So that's a huge deal. Now we have Open Secrets. Open Secrets is where you can actually go to look at who's fundraising, who's actually funding your particular politician. So let's see if we can actually find something. Kevin McCarthy. Total industry, total contribution. Retired enterprise, raised, spent, cash on hand, debt zero, products partners, group, wow, retired. That's bullshit. You shouldn't. Securities and investments. Oil and gas. Fuck you. And so we can see. So you actually get some information here. So you can look at who you're voting for and who they're taking money from. It's complete bullshit. But we actually have that information, and Open Secret's a good source for that. Politifacts is a good website to go to start fact checking things that they tell you in Congress or on the news. It's an actual positive fact checking site. It's not perfect, but a lot of people, they see one problem and everything's a problem. It's like, no, what you should do, like real researchers would. So you go down here, you click on your fact check here. So taxpayer money is set in an account that can be used for other purposes. Okay. So then you have these fact checks here that they did, and see where their sources came from. So they actually mention their actual sources for this information. This is not just, oh, well, we're just going to give you a fact and you have to trust us. No, you can actually do some research and dive in deeper. Now, I understand that it's not always good for your mental health. It is some big issues here. These are things that we actually have to do as reptile keepers. And see, one voice doesn't matter. Like he said, he doesn't like voting. I can't hold that against him. We're massively corrupt. And they don't realize that actually taking away a lot of our strives will actually get us more complacent and actually make us not pay attention to politics as much, because it's not a positive experience most of the time. But these are what I'm talking about. Now we have to work on local state to state laws. We have to figure out whether you can vote, how you want to vote, and then you need to pick out your politicians, and you kind of want to do it ahead of time. And I'm trying to give you the means to do it. This is the means to do it. This is how you figure out what your politician is that you're voting for. And you may have two shitty choices. Basically, Lewis Black said it best: the two-party system's full of shit looking in the mirror at itself. Now in 2022, it looks like it's a bowl of shit looking in the mirror at another bowl of shit with a shotgun. It's not a pleasant experience. It's really not. Like I said, we really need to push to the left and down, like I showed you guys. So I want you guys to contact me. If you're in a state and you want to go over the state laws, contact me, and I want to hear from you. I want to hear things that you've done, things that you've seen, anything you can. I am trying my best to get people from other countries to come into to talk about the politics around the world dealing with reptiles. And if we don't fix the American pocket, we are literally going to suffer as a world. So if you want to protect the animals, you have to play politics. And it's bullshit. It's complete and utter bullshit. We need people to step in, use what USARK is doing, but even more than that, we might want to look at local leaders in our reptile community to actually go and talk to this. We might actually start trying to head things off the pass and go, okay, so we need to go find these politicians, sit down and talk to them about what we in the industry want. Like I said, making the law where you have to take a test and pay $20 or so to actually get a reptile or an amphibian or any exotic animal. And the more dangerous the exotic animal, the more you should pay, the more work that needs to be in it. But we as a community should be helping to make these laws. I'm trying to get the guy from Illinois who actually helped make the laws in Illinois on. So this way we can help ourselves. And I love that idea. This is what we need as a community. And we need to use USARK for what their real intention is, to be a alert system, of which, like he said, there's other organizations that we need to find that are even bigger alerts, that have more pockets, that have more skin in the game than USARK in Congress. So therefore, we can actually work with them. And I try to talk to Phil Gross about this. Now, I really have. It's like, what type of aquarium people? What's the lobbyist for aquarium people? There may not be one. Why is there not one? Aquarium system's been around a lot longer than the reptile community in a way. In a way. So, how do we deal with this? What are some of the factors here? So, we need to play catch up. And we need to step up. So hit me up and we'll have deep conversations. And I try not to be stupidly aggressive about politics. I am not an extremist. I do not want to be my way's the only way, because my way is forever changing. That's my way. And that's how politics needs to be. Hey, thank you guys. Like, subscribe, and share. I really need you guys to share these videos so we can actually get people to do the right things, the more we fight as a community, the better off we are. We hold our own keys. We the people, not the politicians. It's been so long since we've recognized that. Let's do this. Let's do it together. I love you guys.